12K video has never felt that light. This is the Blackmagic PYXIS 12K.
You're watching CineD, supported by B&H and CVP.
Hi everybody from the NAB 2025 show floor with CineD. I'm here with Craig at Blackmagic Design. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Welcome to the show.
First interview of the day, right?
It is. I'm caffeinated. We're ready to go.
As usual, you stole the show with a new camera announcement just before the show, which we reported about. We also reached out to our audience if they had any questions about this. But first, let's get started with, the basics. PYXIS 12K.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about it?
In the quickest terms, we've taken the PYXIS 6K body that we announced last year. It was received fantastically. We spoke last year at the show and afterwards about how we designed a robust, riggable box-style camera. And obviously at the same time, NAB last year, we announced the CineD family of cameras with the 12K sensor. And we wanted to combine those technologies. So this at the show now, we have the PYXIS 12K, bringing that fantastic RGB sensor with 12K capability and 4K and 8K support as well into the PYXIS family with the new PYXIS 12K camera.
So, the obvious elephant in the room is always like 12K, 8K. Do I need a 12K camera? Like, who wants to deal with that massive amount of pixels and data?
I think it's always a good point, and it's been really interesting over the past 12 months working with customers, and that's the question. Do I need a 12K camera? And the answer is often, no, maybe you don't. But what we've built here is a camera system with the PYXIS 12K, with that 12K sensor, probably one of the most advanced 4K camera systems on the market. Certainly both in the CineD 12K, which is one of the most advanced cameras ever built, but with the PYXIS 12K, we've now reduced that down in scale, in affordability and accessibility, so you get everything that RGB 12K sensor can do. But approach it from a 4K production point of view. You can use this camera in 4K productions. You could step up to 8K if you want. There's formats in there all the way through 2.4:1 and DCI delivery. There's anamorphic modes. And it isn't a 12K camera if you don't need it to be. 12K, we've seen people shooting for VFX, for photogrammetry, for wildlife, so they can pan and scan in wide resolution. You can always choose to shoot 12K if that's your need, but the camera can operate in 8K and 4K. But one of the key things that we do with this technology in the camera is we do something called in-sensor scaling. So should you go into the 4K mode on the 12K sensor in the PYXIS 12K, you will get full field of view. This doesn't crop. So compared to other camera systems at this price, at this size, which might have a function where they have to crop in on the sensor, we keep the full width and the full field of view of your lens. Your lens characters will look the same as it would at full sensor. And we're reading all of that sensor data.
And there's no line skipping or anything like that?
There's some processing we're doing at a pixel level because we're ultimately packaging and capturing at a 4K or an 8K resolution from the 12K sensor, but we're not doing that skipping or processing off or ignoring data. So we're capturing down.
So why is that? Explain to me technically. Why haven't we had that before? What makes that RGB 12K sensor special in the way it operates?
Well, it's the RGB structure. So say compared to a Bayer sensor, Bayer has, we know what the grid and the CFA pattern would be, and there's limitations in the way that the color sampling would work, the luminosity and how that's developed out of it, and then how you can scale and process. It's a much more difficult stage. There's 2 or 3 things in our camera technologies that allow us to do that sensor scaling. Firstly, the RGB system, the way that the CFA is designed, is we can work in a grid, a 6x6 grid of those sensors where we have 18 white channel or wide luminance pixels, and we have equal sampling of red, green and blue. With that 6x6 grid, we can do some work within that space, and we can build blocks that we can then scale down 12, 8 and 4K. And then also inside the camera systems as well, we have some computation within FPGAs and some processing power. These are little supercomputers with a lens and a sensor on the front. So we can do a lot of that processing and scaling in the camera system itself. So then when we deliver that into Blackmagic RAW, you're then receiving that visual pipeline processed off the sensor as quickly as possible with as little loss in detail or color fidelity from it. You'll see some resolution difference. If you shot 12K and then you drop the camera to 8 and it's a 4, you'll naturally see some spatial resolution difference because you're limiting that down. But we have processing in the camera where you're still going to get high levels of color fidelity. You're going to get precision and image detail quality pass through as well.
Awesome. So a lot of questions around this camera, of course. A lot of people excited about the dynamic range that we also measured in our lab test, which is extremely impressive of the CineD 12K, especially for a camera at that price point. And now having the same sensor in this size, a lot of people will be excited about this. But of course, naturally, there are a lot of questions around, handling, power, and also, the EVF versus the monitor.
Yeah.
So are there ways to, for example, are there limitations around the USB-C? Can I attach both the monitor and the EVF at the same time, for example?
No, not currently. So we only have the one USB-C port on the camera, same as the PYXIS 6K, sorry. So it's the same physical camera body. So if you looked at the camera from the PYXIS 6K we've had for the past year, you'll have the same options within it. So you could choose the EVF as we've got here on the setup, or you can choose the PYXIS monitor. We don't currently have a solution with this camera system to have both. You've got the side monitor obviously on there, which we can use, although it doesn't articulate. It gives you some visible output if you needed to reference it. In this configuration, typically we're seeing people using the EVF for precision of focusing, and people like to get close to the viewfinder, either front position like this, or they may bring it further back on a rig, and using the side monitor for quick reference and driving into the menus. But we'll see maybe in the future if there's options where we can put multiple units or USBs connected accessories.
Yeah, so that is something that might be possible through a firmware update, or you don't know it?
Not to confirm it, but we listen a lot to customer feedback. We build our camera systems based on how our operators and our customers want to see the products develop. So we do hear that one. Certainly something we'll try to take a look at.
Is there actually a toggle button to switch off the side screen when I don't need it, also in order to save power?
Yeah, you can turn that off, or you can lock it as well, so you don't accidentally tap it, or if you're using a particular setup.
One of the questions we got, of course, the most obvious one, I guess, and I'm guessing one of the most requested hardware features, why are there still no internal NDs?
Well, it reflects the same conversation we had last year, where there was a decision made about if we was to put the rotary mechanism in that you see with our other ND systems, it would change the size of the camera, the weight of the camera. There'd be a cost to doing that as well. So there was a decision made during the design process to go, the way that we approach this camera, principally as a digital cinema system, is the ND option is possibly something you want to add to the front of the lens. That could be tray and filter based with a matte box, or it could be screw-on or variables, whatever you want to do. The nature of where we are with the PYXIS 12K is we've inherited the PYXIS 6K body, we've integrated the 12K sensor, but we still have that, let's say, limitation from some people's point of view or choice. Again, looking at that, there might be things we change in the future where, we see the PYXIS family of products growing and developing, and you see it with the handle and the side control that we've released, that there might be some need for NDs in the future. So you want to shoot more run and gun, you might need that quick internal option, but that'd be something we'll look at.
Okay. Is there an OLPF?
There is, yeah. So we put low-pass filters to the larger resolution sensors. So it's the same sensor assembly as the Ursa CineD 12K camera, so it is inheriting the same sensor block. So there's a low-pass filter designed into it, and the IR cut as well is matched to the sensor. So we're really happy with the IR level, and any kind of pollution elements that you get in there are well managed.
We already talked about physically, there are no hardware differences between the 6K and 12K, so it's really the exact same hardware. So any questions relating to that, we can already say no difference, right?
Yeah, some slight changes in obviously the way that we've integrated the 12K sensor, but that's internal. That's not anything an operator would see. All the options, the connectability, the riggability, the weight of the camera is in and around where the PYXIS 6K is.
Yeah. Autofocus. We saw Grant announce really, finally that step up in autofocus that we've been wanting for Blackmagic cameras in a long time. I think that is only for the Pocket 6K, I think.
Cinema Camera 6.
Cinema Camera 6, sorry, it's not called Pocket anymore. It's confusing. But is there autofocus also coming to the 12K, whether it's the Cine or the PYXIS?
For us to take a look at and confirm, I think. So we've put the Cinema Camera 6K PDAF option out as a beta. And we'd love some feedback on that. There's a lot of work we need to do in terms of matching to lenses and confirming what lenses we need to work with so that we can drive those correctly. The nature of it is we've been working on that autofocus system for a number of years. It's using two elements. We have a phase detection system built in, and also there's an AI layer. So that is doing your object recognition and the tracking part of it. We started to build that autofocus tool actually before PYXIS was something we could physically use, and that was with the same sensor. So the Cinema Camera 6K and the PYXIS 6K use the same full frame 6K sensor. So our next step may be to look at bringing it to the original PYXIS 6K. Our engineers will tell me it's not as simple as this, but just to move it into that product body. After that, based on feedback, we'll see what we can do. But the 12K sensor that you see in the PYXIS 12K and the CineD 12K is a different product. It's an RGB-based system. It's a different sensor. So some more work to be done there, but hopefully.
It's great that this is finally addressed because we know from operators and people who are working with Blackmagic cameras a lot that is the main concern compared to other manufacturers who have really advanced in autofocus in the last couple of years, and it's nice that Blackmagic is now finally trying to catch up, so that's great to hear.
Absolutely, yeah, no, we're really pleased to have it, and it'd be fantastic to see it working.
Let's talk about power consumption. Now, there's a bit of concern, of course, the CineD 12K being a big cinema camera has a big power draw, and in generally, historically, some Blackmagic cameras, have had issues with power draw, and it's just simply, to be frank, have been eating batteries. So what can we expect from the 12K PYXIS? Is this going to be comparable in terms of power draw to the PYXIS 6K? Are there major differences? And will changing the resolution in camera actually make a big difference in power draw?
No, so changing the resolution doesn't. So the way that we're working with the sensor is that it's operating in that 12K scan. Some processing off into the 8K or the 4K modes, as we spoke about. But there's really no change in terms of the power draw, the battery demand, whether you shoot 12K, 8K, or 4K. Or conversely, you don't gain anything by dropping down to 4K if you were shooting 12. Power consumption of the camera is around 60 to 80 watts, depending on your configuration and what you're connecting and using. So that's in and around where we've seen it with the other camera systems. And then obviously, depending on what BPU battery systems you're using, the size of those, you'll be able to calculate out what your running time will be on the camera.
Yeah, is there any significant difference whether you use the EVF or the monitor?
The monitor, they're roughly around the same, about 7 to 8 watts, so they're quite lightweight and designed to be. So although they are high quality OLED in the EVF and is a HDR screen on the monitor itself, they're quite lightweight in their power draw. And again, you can factor that in. Yeah, if you plug the PYXIS monitor on, you will run down your battery slightly faster because you're using that, and you manage that as you need to on set.
Let's talk about recording. So you have internal CF Express Type B, I think 2 slots?
2 slots, yeah.
And then also the ability to record externally to SSD. Any major differences as to frame rates, resolutions between those two recording options?
Well, working in 4K and 8K with CFast Express, generally you'll be able to do pretty much everything. 12K resolutions are probably going to start to exceed that internal memory speed, and we know that's really where might be the limitation of CF Express itself.
Even is it Type 4 or like Type 4, CF Express Type 4, I think supports higher speeds, no?
It will do, but you'll naturally have a limit, I would have thought, at some point. The best advice really is we have a data calculator on the CineD page right now. We maybe will move that to the PYXIS 12K page as well. And you can choose your resolution, your frame rate, and then whatever flavor of Blackmagic RAW, and it will give you a very accurate, pretty much spot on data speed. Compare that to your media. Give yourself a little bit of headroom, and then you know you're not going to get it. There's an option within the camera as well, which we've had on all Blackmagic cameras, which is stop recording if drop frames are detected. Always recommended that's on, but you check your media against it. You can turn that off if you want to, and the camera will continue, but you could have errors in the writing. With your external USB-C, you probably get slightly higher recording capability, and then you can push into those 12K formats.
But the capabilities should probably be the same compared to the CineD 12K, right? I mean, there's no type of processor inside the camera that, for example, it could be that the 12K Cine is faster in some ways.
The key difference between the PYXIS 12K and the CineD 12K is we have the Blackmagic media modules in the larger cameras. So they're a much more robust, faster NVMe-based recording system. So with the CineD 12K, we can run full open gate, full frame rate at 12K, knowing the internal hardware can keep up with sustained recording. That technology outpaces media. We know the media partners we work with that do CF Express are constantly improving and gaining on that. So just keep tabs on what those guys are doing. You know, there's some fantastic media options out there. And then you get the choice with the USB-C that if you're working in a particular format, resolution, or frame rate that exceeds the internal CF Express, you can still obviously go above that. So if you're shooting 12K open gate, you're probably going to be exceeding the CF Express capability, but there's still the options to record. That's why the camera has that function.
Yeah, a good tip for the audience actually. If you go to CineD databases, we have lists of all the recording modes and resolutions for each camera. We'll add that for the PYXIS 12K too. So it's basically an endless list of options on what's possible to record. And you know, we're also linking to databases that are telling you which cards should work based on specs.
Yeah, and we always try to keep pace as well. So we will look to have, for the PYXIS 12K, a list of certified media on our support pages as soon as possible as well.
Yeah. Are there any minimum spec cards that you can tell us which we can use to avoid, you know, frame drops?
Not off the top of my head at the trade show right now.
That's fine.
Rather than
That was a question by somebody, so I know. It's like, go to the website.
By all means, it'll be much more up to date than I am right now.
Good. Yeah, one question was, is it possible to record multiple audio channels at the same time?
With the current interface that we have, you have the limit of the individual single channel input to this. You could obviously use external recorders if you wanted to with it. But again, going back to the fact that we're working with the PYXIS 6K camera system and the body of it, certain limitations apply in what we have with it right now.
Yeah. You guys also announced that the Micro Studio 4K G2 now supports the monitor, right?
It will do. So we're going to do a camera release which will be 9.7. So on the support pages right now, we've updated to support the autofocus beta option, and then the engineers will be working on a couple of new updates because we also announced that we're going to have pre-record in one of the camera releases shortly. So that will put a pre-record option into the Ursa Broadcast G2 and the PYXIS 6K. And then following that, we'll then have the follow-up for the additional support of the PYXIS monitor on the micro camera, which we're demoing at the show as well.
Cool. Just one more thing about this rolling shutter speeds. Is this going to be the same from the Ursa CineD 12K or?
No, it isn't. So the Ursa CineD 12K is a absolute beast of a system. It's a supercomputer with a 12K sensor on the front. The nature of this being a smaller system, we have slightly less FPGA space and certainly less processing. We've just published on the forum the readout speeds for the PYXIS 12K. They are roughly double what you would see on the Ursa CineD 12K. So I think off the top of my head, 4K, 8K at 2.4 to 1 is around 10 milliseconds, whereas we're seeing that at higher frame rates in the Ursa CineD at sub 5 milliseconds. So it's a rough guide to say it's just under double the readouts.
We'll, of course, run it through our lab test once we get access to the camera. Yeah. And just to confirm everything that you published.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's half the size of an Ursa CineD, so it's going to be slightly less capable in terms of its processing.
Last technical question, gyroscope. Is it in there?
Yeah, same as a physical body system that we've got on the PYXIS 6K. So you'll get that data in your metadata for clip information on the gyroscope as you shoot.
And now, last but not least, one question that I always ask at the end, and it's usually quite a boring question, but this time, unfortunately, it's not as boring. Pricing and availability.
So camera's shipping in July. A little bit of just finishing work to do with it, and we'll see this camera in the summer. Pricing is an interesting question. So since putting out the press release, and obviously you'll see the price today, US dollar pricing has changed. Take a look on the website and check local pricing. We need to just work out what these complications are going to mean for us right now. But I would say the website is the best option for you to check what your local pricing would be.
So just basically the tariffs are affecting, of course, your US tariffs are affecting the pricing of your product. And yeah, before we started recording this, we saw the pricing changed on the website. So we're running a separate article on this topic just to show you the differences between Europe and the US now in terms of pricing. But there seems to be a significant difference now. Yeah.
There will be. We own our own facilities, so we have a lot of control over our supply chain. So everything Blackmagic makes and builds is done by Blackmagic. We have multiple production facilities across Asia. We manufacture in our home city of Melbourne as well. So there are consequential effects of changes that have been made by the US government. That's here clearly at NAB right now, and it's a very hot topic as how that's going to affect our industry. It's very early. We've got some internal meetings and there's discussions to be had about how we can manage that. What we'd want to do, obviously, for the European office and for the Middle East and African teams that we manage out of Europe, we want to know how that's going to trickle out. So will that be a global issue, or is that something that may be contained within the US market itself? Right now, you'll see some changes on the website for pricing. You may see that follow through with resellers and what they're talking about on a local level. And then we'll have to see what goes. This is a global issue at a government level. We're a manufacturer of video technologies, so we'll follow the trends. We'll always put the best price we can out for customers. We always want to be affordable and accessible. Sometimes you're going to see prices rise that are outside of our control, unfortunately.
Fair enough. And talking about availability, when can people get their PYXIS 12K?
So yeah, PYXIS 12K shipping in July. So resellers will be taking pre-orders right now if you want to get in the queue for them. We'll see the cameras shipping out in the summer.
Thank you, Craig. That was long and comprehensive. I hope we managed to address most of the questions that we got from the audience. Thank you for your time. We're doing other videos here at Blackmagic booth. One about the new handle accessories for the PYXIS 6K and 12K, about DaVinci 20, and also one about the Ursa Cine Immersive Vision Pro workflow. So go check them out and all our other NAB coverage at CineD.com. Thanks for watching and stay tuned. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks.